Alright guys, Rich here from the RCNetwork, and this is going to be build update number 4 on my TLR22 SCT. Now, I've been probably building about 5 to 6 hours now on this truck. You won't see a huge change. However, I've got most of the electronics installed on the truck. I still need to do some binding of the receiver and make sure everything's all set correctly with the motor and ESC. Also need to purchase up a longer sensor wire. I did not really realize how far the motor is now from the ESC. I've also built up the shock, so I'm going to go over some of the things that I've done, some of the things that I'm still kind of contemplating, and some of the option parts that I've also put on the truck thus far between build number 3 and build number 4. So the first thing, the truck is turning out very, very nice. As far as the placement of everything, I decided to go ahead and move the ESC to the very front of the vehicle. Some people are putting it almost on an angle here on the rear chassis brace. Some people are putting it on a little shelf here on top of the battery. I decided to go all the way forward and put it in front of the battery, kind of right by the receiver. Everything is working out pretty good. I actually had to use bullet connectors, and you'll see the color-coded ones right there, to connect to the motor. Everything is soldered. However, I did use some Castle 4mm bullet connectors. Here's a quick look at the model number of those. Pretty much just your standard 75 amp current 4mm connectors from Castle. So that's the ones that my hobby shop had on hand, and they are the solid ones, so they're not the birdcage ones that you would see on some cheaper line bullet connectors. So so those went on pretty well. I'm pretty happy with those. As far as everything else, the front of the truck is actually kind of crammed now with all of the electronics, and you'll see the R10 Pro right there. Right next door is the SR301, just your standard, Spectrum receiver. It's pretty much what I run in all my vehicles, except for my SCT 410. I believe has the 3100. So you'll see the capacitors right there for the R10, also the switch. Of course, the Savox is up there in the front. So pretty much all that is set. With the R10 Pro, I will not have to run a voltage capacitor for the Savox. So the R10 will pretty much manage the power demand on everything. And you'll see there's the lines up to the motor. Everything's all soldered nice and neat, of course, with my Track Power TK950. I love that thing. Every time I get out that soldering iron, I just love soldering. So got the standard low-C 4mm angled bullet connectors. I just had those on hand, so that went on pretty good. Got my red wire marked right there so I don't accidentally throw that into the negative, and all is good. So one thing I'm kind of contemplating here is there's not really a hold in the back for the battery, so I actually have a TLR battery holder on hand that I may end up using, and that's this part right here. That's the aluminum battery tray from TLR. So I may put this in the back just to kind of make sure the battery kind of stays, because if you look at it, there's nothing really holding it, and that rear chassis brace doesn't really, the battery would just bump right up to it. So we'll have to leave that for further contemplation, I guess you should say. As for the shocks, I built those things up the other day, and they turned out super nice. I mean, if you see here, the design of these things has just come so far from some shocks of the past few years. So I am running the Avert design Avid little cups at the bottom right there, all aluminum. Quick model number on that thing. Let me grab that real quick as we're here, as all my shocks are rolling downhill. So there's those things. I'll have that in the video description too, so you can check those out. The cool thing about these is they actually kind of go in at an angle, and we can kind of see here, and they won't actually come undone unexpectedly, especially when you're out on the track. So pretty cool design. I like those. I run those on my B44-2, and I'm pretty happy with the way that those things work. So, but there's all the shocks. They all turned out great. I built them up just with this stock 27.5 low-C shock fluid. I'm going to run them in a stock configuration first. I didn't do anything with the pistons. Everything else is normal on those things. One thing that I did do that pretty much 90% of the people do is I ended up going with these things. These are the shock shaft O-rings, the low friction ones. Not sure why Low-C doesn't just include those in the kit. I mean, they're not that expensive. But anyways, I ran those things. Made sense. Now, one thing I kind of splurged on here at the RCNetwork is some of these things right here. Check out those. I picked these things up. I've always built shocks, and you always get to that awkward part where you have to hold onto the shaft to put the little ball end at the bottom. So I picked these things up. They were probably $20, and it definitely saved my fingers. So that's the model number on those. Once again, in the video description will be the link. So pretty happy with that. All aluminum. They definitely held on to the shock shaft very nicely. You have your choices of 3, 3.5, and 4 millimeters. So pretty much you can do all of your 10th scale up to your 8th scale shock shaft. So very nice, and it's just a cool tool to kind of have here in the shop, especially when you're building up shocks. So that is hopefully about it. I have some body painting. I have some electronics fine-tuning. The batteries just arrived. There'll be a separate video on which batteries I'm going to run. You'll definitely like those. But that's basically it. If you have any questions about this update or the RCNetwork, please post it on down below. And as always, thumbs up and subscribe. That's it for now, guys. Over and out.